part of the core of what I think we're getting at here is there are different ways of expressing criticism, and that it's not like when I hear certain criticism, and some criticism is great, don't get me wrong, but when I hear some of it, I'm like, you're assuming that there's some sort of moral high road that you've found that you expect everyone to present information as. And that's missing the entire point of the diversity of responses. If you can only speak one language, you're not going to be able to communicate with a lot of people very well.
Yeah, and this is the tricky, one of the very tricky aspects of what we're trying to do, right? We're critiquing the yoga and wellness culture to some extent from within it. And one of the things that I think has made the yoga and wellness culture susceptible to conspirituality is this taboo against critical thinking, against judgment, against, saying that something is wrong and something else is right. So it's like there's this way of communicating that's idealized that kind of borrows from nonviolent communication or couples therapy or, some way of really being in an active listening mode, which is beautiful and very, very useful and necessary, I think, in the right contexts. But it sometimes privileges that at the expense of healthy critique and robust debate. And some of that, I actually wish there were more people who are willing to just roll their eyes at some of these people we cover and say, come on, what are you talking about? That's clearly nonsense. But in a culture that just goes, well, it's their truth. And, who are we to say that their truth is invalid? And, it's just a narrative.
People are saying that the influencer's truth should be respected. But I think they're also from this position of identifying with the influencer's spirituality content. They're also saying there's something in the way this person has spoken that has touched me in a way that I haven't been able to find anywhere else. And so when people are profoundly moved by Zach Bush and his sermon about swimming with the fishes, or when people are profoundly moved. So you just laughed, Julian.
I can't fucking help it.
No, but isn't this the thing, right? Like, I'm glad we're actually doing this because
it just happened. Yeah. You said swimming with the fishes with just a little bit of hot sauce.
Did I really?
Just a tiny bit. Because it's not about, is it about swimming with the fishes? Because that's a way of saying it that sort of already indicates that there's an underlying, humor there.
Okay. All right. So I could have said, because if I really wanted to honor the fact that Zach is talking about something that was very important in his life, I would say, when the consumer of the influencer's content is talking about listening to Zach Bush describe his mystical experience, then they are talking about something that's become precious to them. And then when somebody comes in, when I come in and say, well, actually, he's using that as a point of manipulation in order to support his disinformation brand, I'm in this terrible role of labeling and calling out a kind of spiritual betrayal that might even be abusive. It's something that it spoke to the most altruistic part of the consumer's psyche or their spirituality, when perhaps they haven't had access to things that have inspired them in the same way. And I'm saying, no, don't be fooled. And that's a really terrible job actually to do. I don't know how to do it politely.
It's a great insight. Because essentially what you're doing is you're taking someone who they associate with all of the feelings they might have in hearing that kind of account of something very poetic and very spiritual. And you're saying, but actually, here are some other angles on this person. And for them, so far, all they have is like, wow, this person really inspired me and touched me in a place that feels sacred.
Because they shared a mystical experience.
Yeah.
And they shared it in a very compelling way. And there's a whole ton of transference going on within that very intimate environment, and
which is why it's such a thankless task.
Absolutely, and actually, so in some cases, I think we're interrupting love affairs